Hello and welcome. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a massive impact on all aspects of our lives and our lifestyles, some positive, but some also negative. Negative lifestyle behaviors are also associated with an increased risk of adverse outcomes from COVID-19. Long periods of lockdown and work from home have made people physically inactive. They've resulted in irregular eating patterns, which in turn have led to the aggravation of lifestyle-related diseases. Now, a multi-sectoral approach promoting healthier diets and increasing physical activity can help to slow down the diabetic epidemic that we're seeing these days, and of course the increase in heart diseases as well. Now, beat diabetes, myths and facts will impact and help a large number of people to prevent and control metabolic disorders. We have, as always, experts who will share with you their advice on leading a healthy life. Joining us today, Dr. Srirang Godbole, MD, MNAMS, DNB endocrinology. He's a consultant endocrinologist with InStride, the Institute for Treatment and Research in Diabetes and Endocrinology in Pune. We also have with us Dr. Margam Kiran Kumar, MBBS MD, General Medicine, Consultant Physician and Diabetologist, Sun City Hospital, Hyderabad. We're also being joined by Dr. Blesson Varghese, MD, General Medicine, DM Cardiology, Chief Interventional Cardiologist with WellCare Hospital in Kochi. Thank you all for being with us. Dr. Srirang Godbole, let me begin with you. Do COVID-19 and diabetes have a kind of bidirectional relationship? And if that is indeed the case, can you explain this further to us?
The presence of one may impact the other. Fortunately, diabetics per se are not prone to developing COVID-19 infection. But if an individual with diabetes develops a COVID-19 infection, the chances are that the disease would become more severe. It would probably entail a higher risk of hospitalization, more number of days in the hospital, probably an admission to the intensive care unit, superimposed infections such as mucormycosis, and even the possibility of death. But having said that, this is not a blanket statement. The risk of developing a severe disease depends on the degree of glycemic control of the individual and also the presence or absence of other risk factors such as obesity or high blood pressure. Also, if the individual with diabetes already has certain chronic complications of diabetes like kidney disease or heart disease, the risk of severity of the disease goes up. Conversely, COVID-19 infection itself may uncover a previously unknown diabetes, or it may even worsen a pre-existing diabetes. And this is because the virus is thought to attack the cells that produce insulin, which is so necessary to keep the blood glucose levels under control. And of course, in an acute setting, very often in a COVID setting, we need to use steroid groups of drugs, which tend to cause the sugars to rise. So all in all, both these things, COVID-19 and diabetes, have a bidirectional relationship.
Dr. Margam Kiran Kumar, do people with diabetes need to worry about diabetic ketoacidosis after getting the COVID-19 infection? That's something we've been hearing about increasingly.
Yes, we can see the diabetic ketoacidosis is a common potential lethal acute complication of diabetes, which can have relatively insulin deficiency factor. Even post-diabetic, once the patient is cured from the COVID-19 also, if the patient is not getting sugar levels under control, post-discharge also, we have seen many cases, readmissions to the hospitals with uncontrolled diabetes. Even diabetic ketoacidosis is not only COVID. In any viral infections, people are prone to get a complication, is a lethal complication called as diabetic ketoacidosis.
Right. Dr. Varghese, what about thrombosis risk? Can you tell us a little more about what thrombosis risk is? And, it's something clearly that doctors are having to manage in patients with COVID-19.
COVID-19, the virus has a molecular mimicry which can activate the clotting cascade and the clotting activation system. So we have been seeing many cases, especially in the primary wave of sudden cardiac death. And later on, we realized that the underlying pathology here was blood clotting blood clotting happens in the lungs, it happens in the heart. When you get it in the lungs, it's called pulmonary embolism. And when it's in the heart, coronaries, then you have massive heart attacks and people die suddenly. So this kind of a activation of the clotting cascade and thrombosis, that is the blood clot formation, happens everywhere in the body. And of course, it has found that this is an underlying mechanism for the pathology. Even microthrombosis happens in the lungs, it increases pulmonary hypertension. So we have to manage it with blood thinning medications, and it has become a standard practice, especially in the second wave, to start anticoagulation in patients with a moderate to severe disease of COVID, and which has come in the form of heparin as injection and some oral tablets also, and that could make a big difference.
Okay. Dr. Godbole, pre-diabetes, if it goes undiagnosed, can actually lead to the development of type 2 diabetes as well. How is pre-diabetes defined, and can it be considered as a warning sign for people to take steps in order to prevent type 2 diabetes?
Pre-diabetes is a condition where the blood glucose levels do not meet the criteria for diabetes, but are nonetheless too high to be considered altogether normal. So talking in terms of numbers, if the fasting blood glucose level ranges from 100 to 125 milligrams per deciliter, and the 2-hour plasma glucose level after a standard 75-gram glucose load ranges from 140 to 200 milligram per deciliter, this would be considered as prediabetes. Now, prediabetes may be an intermediate stage between normal and frank diabetes. But fortunately, this is not necessarily an irreversible phenomenon. So it is possible to come back to normal. And that is essentially done by lifestyle modification. Lifestyle modification means eating healthy food, doing aerobic activity over, say, 150 minutes over 1 week, moderately heavy aerobic activity, and staying at a healthy weight. We must also understand that prediabetes may be a pointer to the existence of other risk factors for the heart, such as obesity, high blood pressure, and high levels of fats in the blood. So it is important for a person with prediabetes to recognize these other risk factors and try to control and get rid of all of them and come back to normal.
Dr. Madam Kiran Kumar, the prevalence of diabetes among the younger population seems to have increased rapidly. It's also seen that, a young generation, quite healthy, they're body conscious, they're probably exercising quite a bit, going to the gym, maintaining their body weight and shape, and yet this is happening. So what could be the reasons behind this? Can you have an unhealthy lifestyle even if you're sort of doing a fair bit of exercise or gymming? What are your thoughts on this?
Here we need to talk about two things. One is genetic factor and environmental factor. Genetic factor is hereditary. Parents are having, offspring are having, so children are prone to get diabetes. Second thing, environmental factors where stress, strain, aging factor, lifestyle, obesity, and obese and physical inactivity is a major concern for prevalence in young diabetes nowadays. Stress is a major concern. Obesity is a major concern point for younger diabetes. The prevalence is there in these things.
All right, we will take a very quick break at this point, but when we come back, we'll talk about many more things, whether those with diabetes need to keep checking the dosages they've been prescribed, especially if they haven't been back to their doctors in a while, and much, much more. That's coming up right after this quick break. Welcome back to Beat Diabetes Myths and Facts. Let's go right across to Dr. Blesson Varghese, who's with us on the program. Dr. Varghese, are people living with heart disease more vulnerable to severe complications from infectious diseases, COVID-19 being one of them, of course, but others as well?
Yes, there is a increased vulnerability for severity of the disease as well as for death, especially when your heart reserve is less. When we look at the heart disease per se, had a heart attack or had an angioplasty in the past, never make you susceptible to any infection, or like your COVID-19 susceptibility is as same as any other person. But once you get it, you can have a severe course of illness because you are already taking multiple medications, and you may be having your heart reserve to tackle instability of your system is less. So there is a chance, especially for patients with low pumping power and patients with abnormal heart function, and whose effort tolerance, whose activity level is low, and who are confined, elderly. These are the subgroups actually who have multiple other diseases like diabetes, kidney disease, along with the heart disease. These patients are highly vulnerable for a bad course of illness, especially with COVID or any other infectious disease.
Right. Now, Dr. Godpole, should persons with diabetes check the dosage that they've been prescribed by this physician, especially when they're working from home, they've put on additional weight, they're perhaps not eating, they've developed some irregular eating patterns. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, absolutely. Working from home on the face of it seems very convenient, but actually can get very hectic. It generally involves spending long hours in front of the laptop screen and probably munching away. And many people who work from home complain that they do not get enough time to exercise. So all this leads to an increase in weight, and increase in weight leads to poor action of the insulin hormone, which finally controls the blood glucose levels. So if you're a person who's working from home, I would suggest 2 or 3 things. First is keep a track of your weight. Also keep a track of your waist circumference. Keep a track of your blood glucose. Obviously, if you're a diabetic, you should be doing that. But even if you're not a diabetic, but prone to becoming one, you should still keep a watch on your blood glucose levels. Keep in touch with your doctor. So if you're a diabetic and on medications, it's highly likely that your requirements of anti-diabetic medication are going to go up. So keeping in touch with your healthcare provider in these situations where you probably need to do it virtually is very important. So keep a watch on all these factors, and I'm sure you'll do well.
Dr. Magan, Kiran Kumar, this question goes to you. There's so much fear, helplessness, economic hardship, all of these things caused by the pandemic. And that, of course, has seen a resultant increase in stress levels as well. Do you find that, in the diabetic patients that you see, that has actually impacted their management of diabetes, increased stress?
But definitely stress is a major concern point, especially in the chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension. Stress plays a vital role. Because of stress, they can lead to any other chronic illness like cardiac problems, inactivity, they cannot do regular activities, they can't make their lifestyle fit and fine, cannot approach to their goals, cannot maintain their sugar levels appropriately because of stress, financial problem. Stress can a major role where it releases the cortisol. Because of this stuff.
Right. Now, okay. Dr. Varghese, we hear terms like heart attack and heart failure quite frequently. Are they interchangeable? Is there a difference between heart failure and a heart attack?
As you know, heart attack is something which happens acutely, means all of a sudden in an unexpected moment. And the pathology is like the arteries which supplies the muscles of the heart, that is the coronary arteries, it gets blocked abruptly. So then the area of muscle doesn't get oxygen and nutrition, and it starts dying. And that dying of the muscles or the crying of the muscles is what you get as the pain and what we call as the heart attack. The heart failure is, you can say, the result of multiple heart attacks, and this kind of chronic injury to the myocardium or the muscle of the heart makes it dilated, and it reduces its pumping power and it reduces its efficiency. So you get breathless. You may not get acute pain, but you will be in a constant state of breathlessness, effort intolerance, you fatigue, and your level of activity comes down. So this is where the heart failure comes.
Right.
So the heart failure is a chronic situation.
Dr. Godbole, what about women who have gestational diabetes? Will the child be at increased risk of future diabetes in such a situation?
So gestational diabetes refers to the diabetes that is diagnosed for the first time during pregnancy. And this diagnosis typically occurs during the 6th month of pregnancy, and the risk goes on increasing thereafter progressively till the 9th month. Now, why this occurs is not completely known, but particularly women who have a family history of diabetes and who are already overweight prior to the pregnancy are more likely to get gestational diabetes. Fortunately, most of the time, gestational diabetes reverses to normal after delivery, but 50% of such women go on to develop frank diabetes permanently within 5 years of their delivery. So it's important for the woman to keep a track of the blood glucose levels after delivery. But having said that, it's not just the woman who's at an excess risk, but even her child, when the child grows up to become an adult, that child is also at a higher risk for getting diabetes and obesity. Now, again, why this occurs is not completely known, but it possibly has to do with the exposure of the fetus to high levels of maternal fuels such as blood glucose. And these cause a permanent imprint on the memory of many organs, including the pancreas, the fat, and the liver. And that possibly predisposes such a child to developing future diabetes.
Dr. M. Kiran Kumar, what about, what steps can women take to better manage gestational diabetes?
Timely diagnosis of gestational diabetes and take advice from the diabetologist regarding the dietary counseling, maintenance of blood sugar control, vegetable diet, increase in the fiber in the diet, and maintain the carbohydrates equality. They divide the dose of carbohydrates in the 2 meals or 3 snacks or 3 meals or 2 snacks. Maintain the dietary and exercise, regular physical activity, and maintain the sugar levels under control can definitely lead to it not be any problem in gestational diabetes.
Right. Dr. Varghese, since we're talking about diets and dietary precautions one can take, many years of studies have shown a close relationship between cardiovascular disease and cholesterol levels. Your thoughts on this? Should one focus on lowering dietary cholesterol, on saturated fats? What is the advice that you give?
When you look at the risk factors, which is closely associated with the development of atherosclerosis and heart disease, we have seen that cholesterol has the strongest association. Your blood cholesterol level has the strongest association more than the other risk factors like diabetes or smoking or obesity. So it's imperative that, and it is seen that in countries where the average cholesterol level has come down, has shown as statistically decreased incidence of heart disease or heart attacks. So it's important that we have to reduce cholesterol. Now, the contribution of the dietary cholesterol to the blood cholesterol level is not that clear as we know today. So, but it's only 20 to 30% of the dietary cholesterol contributes to your blood cholesterol level. But so if your diet doesn't work with the lowering the cholesterol, you have to take medicine for reducing the cholesterol. But it's imperative that you have to reduce your cholesterol if your lipid profile is abnormal.
All right. Thanks very much indeed, Dr. Varghese, Dr. Godbole and Dr. Kiran Kumar for joining us on the show and answering a range of questions on how to manage chronic conditions. Thanks for watching.